water season.
Yeah, that's a nice buck. Whew, look at the size of his body.
Look at the mass.
Yeah, that's a dandy.
Anybody want a selfie with him? He's ready. Hey everyone, John Kolb with Suffering Outdoors. I'm here with Mitch Shirk of the Pennsylvania Woodsman's podcast. We are doing some scouting on public woods here in Pennsylvania. Going to share some tips and show you guys what we find. Clayton's with us. He's helping with camera, providing some input in some of our decision making for scouting. So we'll see what we can find and how it goes.
Looking forward to it.
All right, Mitch, so we saw some browse here, some stinging nettle, and what were you seeing when you stopped?
There was stinging nettle, most of that was browsed off. Like right here was a couple places browsed off, which you see a lot of the time, especially in the bottoms. We're dry right now. There's a lot of moisture in this vegetation, so I think they come into these bottoms in the summertime and they feed a lot, which is great information. I'm more focused back further where I think it's going to kind of focus on fall a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits to seeing this now while we're scouting is you want to find areas in the big woods where there's a diversity of habitat. You want to make sure that there's food in the early spring, throughout the summer and fall. So this is a good sign early that the deer are going to hold here and feel safe and not need to move around a lot outside of this area.
The area we're going to, I kind of have a little bit of history with. We started doing some hunting. I actually killed a buck down in this hollow with a rifle, and I kind of looked at it as, you know, there's chop-offs relative to this area, but they're close to easy access for other people. And I kind of had that logic of, you know, there's a lot of terrain features back here that suggest maybe there's deer on the backside of this cut. And I started exploring it, and sure enough, we found some good bucks. Like I said, I killed one, I've seen multiple. So now I'm trying to fine tune and use some cameras to just say, okay, I know if I want to still hunt it, that's one thing, but if I want to come in here with a bow, where's my access? How am I going to use the thermals and everything else to my advantage? And then also just try to pick the most high-odd spot, you know, kind of in that October, November time frame.
And what about acorns or nuts? Do you have much food source there?
Yeah, this forest really is not overly abundant with mass crop. We do have beech. I mean, a few years ago we had a big beech crop, but generally speaking, we don't have a lot of oaks, so mass crop is not that boom bust. We don't have a dominant oak forest, so we don't have, you know, just a variation year to year. So what I notice in a forest like this is if it's browse based and you can find browse, it stays fairly consistent year to year. You know, one year to the next, I still see similar patterns or similar trends of where deer like to spend, where they move bed to feed. It varies a little bit, obviously, but I mean, generally speaking, you know, from the blowdowns to the cuts to just the topography, it stays fairly consistent.
Yeah, and that was one of the mistakes that I made when I first started hunting public ground in the big woods. Is I'd find an area with usually shed hunting with a ton of acorn sign and deer everywhere, scrapes, tore up. Then I go in the next season with all my waypoints marked, my tree stand locations, and it would be absolutely dead. So I think one of the things I'm learning and trying to adjust to is finding areas where there's more diversity of habitat and more things to hold the deer there, not just relying on a good acorn or nut crop to keep the deer there. So we keep going. We have a camera that Mitch put out. How long has that camera been out?
That camera's been out since October, so I had aspirations of pulling it sooner, but I put it out in October with the mindset of soaking it all season long, just trying to collect information. My goal today is pull that camera. I'm probably going to keep it, maybe move it. I have a couple more cameras, and I really want to, you know, use our scouting today and pick your guys' brains too, and just say, hey, you know, I'll put a couple more cameras out, cluster some stuff, and just get a little bit better idea of this specific spot. Well, actually, I'm not seeing it. I was busy doing other stuff, but John found these scrapes. It's at the bottom of this draw, and this is a spot I've actually been thinking, I wonder if I want to put a camera in here somewhere. But
I think it'd be a good camera location. There's not necessarily a prominent trail here, but again, we have cuts above us. There's two real prominent draws coming together here.
Right.
And then we have a big wide bench in the creek bottom. It's kind of raised up off the creek, but there's a lot of micro topography as we get down into this bench. And then we have a real prominent point across the draw from us that we know deer are bedding on. We've encountered a number of bucks on. That's where your camera's at. So
Yeah, I'm actually wondering, so like you look, you've got this point coming off of here. You got this point coming down here, and it kind of all locates at this one spot. And I don't know if this would be a place that I would be able to sit in the day. I guess that's where I should stick a camera here and decide that. But it just kind of looks like it's a hub right here for maybe collecting information.
from our experience being in here in rifle season, you know, this bench down below us, or the flat and the creek bottom, is always, there's bucks that are cruising up and down that rubs, you know, in linear trails, and a lot of scrapes down there too. So
I think today's like a forecasted southwest wind, but like this draw, this is running east and west, and I feel the air pulling down the hill too. So like I wonder if this would be a place like, I like sitting on benches just because you can get that lateral movement, but you know, you follow it to a point, you're getting multiple features where deer might run in and might collect at one spot, and this might be a place that's worthwhile putting some time in. But let's go down in a little bit and just see where that bench comes over here, if there's any better concentration, because this somewhere in here I think I'm going to put a camera. Not touch the licking branch, hopefully. It does look like it's rooted up down here.
Yeah, actually, this looks like a big bed.
And this is the
Single
kind of,
bed.
This is the exact kind of beds that I'm seeing out on that bench. So where I killed that buck a couple years ago, he was right up against the divot of the side hill. He was right up against that, looking down the draw. And then he had the hill to his back, and I bumped him. I was above him, and I ended up getting a shot at him. But this is kind of like that same thing. It's like kind of off the edge.
the trail coming right up and down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I'm thinking this is
a good spot for a camera, at least,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Let's go down a little bit further.
So one of the things that I've found the past couple years is I'm finding a lot of bucks putting like scrapes right by their beds. And then it's a way for them to monitor if anything's hit. Now this is
Right.
a little strange to me because it's below, but usually they're at a spot to where they can wind check when they're bedding. If
Right.
any doe come through and use a scrape or pee in the scrape, they can smell it.
Right.
So this doesn't surprise me that there's a nice buck bed right
Right.
below that scrape system. Rub right here, following this trail down. Oh, this is power scrape right below that bed.
Came to mind, Mitch. What if we kind of walk this bottom out?
You kind of keep that edge.
For here, look at this scrape, and look at that maple tree.
Yeah, I
Get
know.
right
You
in
could get
there.
in that maple
Your
tree pretty
thermals would
nice.
dump into the bottom.
And what I like too is it's open here, because like anytime you get like in an area where it'll just draw down, because leaves will block that and it'll cause swirling. Like, and the other thing too, like if you'd sit right in here and you've got this opening, I find that it goes in circles. It's like when I sit in food plots. So many times the food plots that I sit in, they're surrounded by closed canopy forest, and it just swirls in that opening. I've been sitting there, and all of a sudden deer come out, they feed for 2 minutes, and away they go. It's like, what's going on? Well, it was swirling. It was like that bowl effect. So like just getting off of this opening, I think it would be enough that it wouldn't swirl in this opening, and it would hopefully pull down that draw for a spot to sit.
And that's right by the scrape.
But yeah, this is an impressive
below
scrape.
the bed. So if you were able to come up through the creek bottom,
Right,
I
and then
would
just
come
kinda
through
come
the
that
creek
edge.
bottom at night, come up the draw, and sneak, maybe not in that tree because you're pretty close to the bed, but sneak in somewhere where he comes down this point at night, just before
Yeah.
dark. You could shoot him.
Yeah,
I think you can get them. I would put it up high.
agreed.
Here, you got. We're thinking about putting out a camera here, and we found some old metal apparatuses. But one thing that's really neat about this area, it's just incredibly active in the logging era in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There's a ton of history, a bunch of old abandoned logging towns. And one thing we're finding from a hunting aspect is there's a lot of logging grades left in the forest. And some of the real steep sections of the side hill, there's a road right at the base of that steep section. And anywhere that there's been a blowdown on those roads, we found some bedding sign, and that seems to be a good area to, you know, kind of target for signs. So, but just some neat history.
Full-time working individual and family man.
So we have an old rub here, but what are we finding, and kind of what were you hoping to find?
So like I was looking at that point, like I said, we've seen a lot of deer over the years and bumped them off this point, bedding and stuff. And what I was hoping I'd see is, you got multiple benches coming to this point, and then you got multiple benches coming to this point. And it seemed like, every now and then you get these blowdowns, you get an area where it's like, yeah, there's like a microclimate, maybe they might bed there, maybe a little bit more browse than there is. But I was hoping it would concentrate, maybe a little bit more sign, maybe a little bit more buck sound. We're just not seeing that. Which makes me ask the question, is it just an area they travel through? Maybe it's going to be something that it does kind of concentrate movement if there's going to be some long range movements in the rut, but maybe it's not something that's, a consistent use, or consistent daily, something that they're bedding in here a lot and then using that terrain feature to go down.
And that's one of the things that you find 9 times out of 10 on public ground in big woods, is you have areas where you're getting sporadic sign, and we saw some dropping, some beds. There's a thing called confirmation bias, where you think, or you want there to be, you want to find good sign, you want to find bucks, you want to confirm your theory that this is a good spot to hunt. And I'm not saying it's not a good spot,
Sure.
but I would find things like a rub, and like, yep, they're here. This is a great sign to set up. So I've kind of flipped the switch. Instead of trying to find things that make me feel like it's a good spot, I go into a spot thinking this is a bad spot, change my mind to where I find something so hot or so, like, which we were talking, this is pretty open, but if we find a thick area where there's some young saplings, some extra cover, that might be something that connects the 2 benches where the bucks would feel comfortable walking through that thicker area. But unless you find that like aha moment or that hot sign, you have to cover a lot of ground in big woods public to find good areas.
Well, that's just it. Does that beg the question that when we're finding them here, it's because now they've been pushed at that point in the season. Now they're coming here. Yeah, they're getting pushed out of the places that are closer to the road, the likely cuts.
And they're in the prime habitat right now, which is not here.
Exactly. And maybe part of archery season, maybe they're not as pushed. I mean, I know there's pressure, but don't get me wrong, but it's not like rifle season.
Just traverse the rock cliffs to make it up here. So what made you decide, or what wanted you to put this camera in this specific spot?
When I went here in October, so now that we're on this first bench here, this kind of stair steps its way to the top. There's another little bench up there, and then on the very top is a really old cut. I mean, it's all pole timber. It's probably like a 15-plus-year-old cut. And you just had this stair stepping, and I kind of went out through the bench that goes here, runs north and south. I had walked that bench and was kind of traversing around these blowdowns, and I was trying to find a place where I thought maybe we'd get a lot of, more concentrated movement. And I just landed at this spot. There were trails that navigated from that top through here. And when I got to this spot, there was a beech tree right here, and had an overhanging limb. I thought, I'll put a mock scrape there. It was already naturally there. I just opened it up and stuck a camera and thought, I'll just see what funnels through here. My goal today, I'd kind of like to just go through some of this a little bit more and see if there's any other camera locations or maybe better locations for stand hunting.
When we're coming up, I noticed right on the ridge line some buck rubs too. So there's definitely bucks hanging out through here and rubbing.
Yeah, and the question I have too is, is this a place where in the fall that they're bedding, or is this a place that they're cruising through in the rut? I did find multiple doe groups that I bumped off of this bench. So, it could be a combination, and I'm not quite sure yet. But that's the joys of cameras, is they tell you something.
Yeah.
That's a big deer. Oh yeah, baby. 11-20.
That was bear season.
Yeah, that's a nice buck. Whew, look at the size of his body.
Look at the mass.
Yeah, that's a dandy. There's another one.
Are you putting this in the video?
He can. That's a 6-pointer. I don't think that's a 2-year-old. That's a big deer. I mean, it could be a big 2-year-old, but look at his chest. I don't think it's a 2. Look at the mass.
arrow sticking out.
Well, is that the day he shot it?
Yeah, that's the second. That's when he killed it.
Get out.
Went right past the camera when he shot it. Look at that.
See, look.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Right past it. That's the day he killed it.
Yeah, it's right there.
And it had that arrow sticking from archery.
Yep. That was crazy.
Thanks for tagging along, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys want to check out his podcast, it's anywhere you listen to podcasts. He's part of the Sportsman's Empire podcast network.
You search Pennsylvania Woodsman, will come up, the whole Instagram, Facebook stuff, and then of course our network. And you can download all our podcasts at the anywhere you download them: Google Play, iTunes, Spotify. So yeah, it's a fun thing to do. Have a weekly show, talk all things outdoors.
He's producing some really good content around Pennsylvania, specific to Pennsylvania, which is really neat. And he's had Steve Shirk on, he's had Johnny Stewart. So a lot of really good Pennsylvania hunters, and really enjoy the content.
And I've had John Kolb on.
Oh yeah, I've been on there.